Our first guests are true inspirations. Biby Gonzalez has created an organization called Hear HuntingtonsDisease, a support page for people, families, and friends affected by Huntington's disease in hopes of finding a cure through awareness and research. We also have Mindy Schroeder, Vice President of the Board for Huntington's Disease Society of America's San Diego chapter, whose goal is to provide resources and awareness for people with Huntington's disease and their families. Thank you for being here,
Thanks
guys.
for having us.
Thanks for having us.
I love that you're here. I was mentioning it to you just a little bit earlier that I actually got to meet somebody that had Huntington's disease, and you guys were telling me how rare it is, how very few people know.
Yeah.
So please explain to our audience, what is Huntington's disease?
So Huntington's disease is a genetic disease. It's inherited from one of your parents. It happens in about 3 out of 100,000 people. So it's pretty uncommon. But because it's inherited, oftentimes the families know it's in their family and it's passed down from person to person. Unfortunately, it's a really tough disease to face, and a lot of times people go into denial in their families and they don't talk about it. So we want to come out here and just spread some awareness and let people know about the disease and let them know that they don't have to go through it alone.
And what are some of the symptoms?
So there's a movement disorder. Early on, there's some mood disturbances. Sometimes you'll see people with depression, rage. Often it's misdiagnosed. A lot of times, like with my dad, for example, he had the movement disorder early on, but it was so mild that the doctors had no idea that it was Huntington's. Wow. And because we didn't know it was in our family, he went 7 years misdiagnosed before we knew what he had.
Now, for someone watching that thinks, okay, maybe I have some of these symptoms, is there any difference between getting it diagnosed in the beginning or later on, like you said, 7 years later? Is there anything currently that helps patients to not progress?
So right now there are no effective treatments and there is not a cure for Huntington's, but there's some really amazing research happening where if people are identified early enough, they can get involved in these clinical trials that are looking to slow the progression of the disease, and we're very hopeful in the HD community right now.
Now, Biby, you were telling me that you have a history of your family having Huntington's, and you guys, like many, didn't know initially what was happening, right?
Yeah, what happens is with the Latino communities, they leave their hometowns at a very young age, and they never go back. And so they don't know what's happening over there, and
the history?
They don't know the history, so they start having those symptoms like the movement, the depressions. The movements are called chorea, and that's why the name is Huntington chorea, or Huntington's disease, also known in Mexico as enfermedad de Huntington, enfermedad de Huntington y Corea de Huntington. También el baile del zambito es conocido como eso.
Because you were saying, so baile del zambito is kind of like a dance. You were also mentioning that it was thought of back in the day as something negative, something like witchcraft.
Some towns still believe that it was witchcraft done on the family, and that's why generation after generation this keeps recurring to the family members, and they don't know, they have no idea, or they get misdiagnosed by telling them that it's Parkinson's.
So how were you guys able to figure out that that's what you had in your family?
Well, unfortunately, in my family, I will be considered the 4th generation. There's a 5th generation already. But we found out through my grandmother. We've been part of the UCSD Center of Excellence of Research for Huntington's disease for 38 years. And that started with my grandma. Unfortunately, back in those days, it was believed to be a mental problem. Wow. So she was actually held in a locked unit, and sometimes even with a straitjacket, thinking that it was a mental problem and not the Huntington's disease.
That's so unfortunate.
Yes.
But you guys you've made an effort to make sure that people know and are aware so this doesn't keep happening, right?
Yes. Unfortunately, what we see in all of our families is that the persons that are affected many times are abandoned by their loved ones, by their husbands or their wives or their children, when they don't know what the disease is, because they get upset with them at the way they're acting, when they're explosive, and they they don't know that it's part of the disease, for example.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I was telling you guys, my mom is a caregiver, and she actually cared for someone with Huntington's. And when I asked her about her patient changing, she was a very sweet person. I said, we know she wasn't so sweet anymore. She said, no, she was still a very sweet person. She said it was the Huntingtons that was taking over. She said she was always a very sweet person. And I think it takes that knowledge. It takes somebody who knows what's happening to be able to separate the two. And that's what you guys are doing, bringing some awareness so people know that you don't have to isolate yourself from those people, right?
Right. Well, you know, in San Diego, too, we have a really healthy and large Huntington's disease community. We've done a lot of outreach, and we just had a walk. We had over 300 people come out, and that's very large for the Huntington's disease community. And one of the things we want to do in these events, besides raise money, obviously, is connect people so that we all can hear each other's stories, know that what you're going through is also what I went through, and it's not just me, and I'm not isolated. So one part of coming on the show is letting people know that there's a resource for them.
And you guys are part of this organization, right?
Yeah, I'm the vice president of the San Diego chapter. I actually just joined a couple of months ago, but have been affiliated for years with this chapter and just doing events and fundraising and awareness campaigns.
So is there meetings, is there other events that are coming up that people can look forward to? If they relate to your story, they know someone with Huntington's, or in the past maybe they have family history of it?
Yeah, there's a monthly support group that we have. And we have 3 different groups, people that are at risk for the disease, because remember, it's genetic.
Yes.
And the children of parents who have Huntington's, they may not know their status. And getting tested is a really big deal. So they go into a group for people thinking about perhaps getting tested and not, and they talk about those issues. We have a group for people that are affected, and they can talk about their own issues that they're experiencing, and a group for caregivers.
I love that you guys have each one. Everyone's going to deal with their own issues and have somebody that they can relate to in that group.
Because this is a family disease. It's not just the patient. It affects the family as much as the patient. Sometimes the patients don't really know, but the ones carrying all the
burden.
The burden is the family, especially because it happens at a younger age. Right now, we even have juvenile Huntington's, because the gene
is that seen normally? I felt like it was a little bit later in life, but
the gene has been.
Is that a common case?
The mutation has been becoming stronger and stronger.
Wow.
So now we see it in children.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the normal progression is people will start to see symptoms sometimes in their mid-30s, usually in their early 40s, but because the mutation gets bigger, it's a genetic mutation, when it's passed down, the disease tends to get more severe and come on earlier.
I feel like there's so much more to learn about Huntington's, but you guys have made a great effort by being here today, and I really appreciate you sharing your stories and giving the awareness that's needed to spread the word, and hopefully some people can make it out to you guys if they can relate or have known someone. Yeah. Thank you very much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And can I add some?
Yes, of course.
A message in Spanish.
Yes.
Se están haciendo estudios clínicos todo el tiempo. Si en su familia hay algún tipo de enfermedad neurológica, que no busquen ayuda, busquen a un profesional. Si gustan ir a UCSD, en el Centro de Excelencia, ahí ven todo tipo de desórdenes neurológicos, y está la investigadora más grande de la enfermedad de Huntington. Y para aquellos que saben que hay Huntington en su familia, no tienen que hacerles pruebas genéticas para ver si ustedes tienen Huntington, porque muchas personas no quieren enterarse del diagnóstico. Entonces, no tienen que hacerles pruebas, pero pueden participar aún así en los estudios clínicos. No podemos encontrar una cura si no tenemos al paciente. No podemos estudiar esto en una persona que no está siendo afectada. Incluso los que nos hicimos la prueba y salimos negativos a Huntington, podemos participar en los estudios clínicos porque llevamos el ADN también. Entonces, pero no llevamos el mutante.
Sí, hay formas de ayudar, aunque no lo tengas, puedes ir, informarte si sabes o si tienes a lo mejor el presentimiento, ¿verdad?
Correcto, es bien importante que participemos en los estudios clínicos y que no tenga miedo la gente, porque sí, como no hay cura, la gente que tiene dudas no quiere enterarse. Sí. No quiere investigar porque no hay una cura y es
Pero pueden poner su granito para el futuro para, por favor, un milagro que salga y luego podremos tener una cura para esto. Muchas gracias por estar aquí. Thank you for being here today for both of you.
Thank you.